Hello, and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 18th of May, 2026. It's Gary here again, and well, you know what? Thank God that season is done and dusted. Oof, it was the worst of times, and then a wee bit of the best of times, and then ultimately the worst of times at the end, and we kind of got what we deserved, unfortunately, and where that ended us up was, in terms of the overall league championship, actually, it was the lowest points of the league champions since the pandemic. You know, remember that when it's points per game and that mob from the East End got things curtailed right at the very end without us having any obligation to play at the end. Again, they will do anything to win, and we've seen the best and worst of Scottish football. Actually, the worst and worst of Scottish football this last wee while here, didn't we? You know, we got injury time penalties that were not a penalty. We got offside goals that would have been chalked off for offside for any other team apart from one. I'm pretty sure you know what team I'm talking about. We got a third pitch invasion in the space of 3 weeks, and with nothing really that's going to be done by that, and a team in Hearts that basically had everything absolutely go against them towards the end of the season to set things up for what it seems like everyone, apart from everyone, you know, it seems like that it was destined to go to the East End of Glasgow again, and that's not through inspiration or magic or divine intervention or anything. That's just the way things have been set up, because that's just the way things are set up. And it's one of these things that we got what we got. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. I'm pretty sure I've said that on this podcast before, and nothing has changed. Again, the authorities are very much intertwined with that team from the East End, and will do everything they possibly can to make sure that they get what they want, which is that league championship trophy and the possibility of Champions League football for next season. It was a terrible season, folks, wasn't it, really? You know, I mean, 3 weeks ago I was sitting here all excited, thinking about the possibility, 5 more wins, you know, went down from 9 to 5, and then we just completely and utterly collapsed when it really mattered most. And I said last week, I was kind of over it last week, you know, because we're just simply not good enough. And that proved to be the case by us finishing third. We lost the league. I mean, 3 weeks ago, we think we're going to win it. We lost it by 10 points at the end when all is said and done. And here's the irony. We need that mob to now beat Dunfermline, who are managed by Neil Lennon, no less, to beat Dunfermline on the weekend so that we get access to the Europa League qualifiers rather than the Conference League qualifiers. I don't want them to win anything, but in looking, I was actually chatting with a couple of guys on the weekend there, saying, what would I want Rangers to do in that situation? Would I want us to lose the cup so that would financially, materially handicap that team from the East End and you know, for the foreseeable future, for the next season at the very least? Or is it all about trophies and things will fall out the way that they fall out? It depends really what you're looking at. It depends what you're looking at in terms of what's best for Scottish football. And if you didn't hear what I said about that last week, in that, when has that mob ever done anything for the benefit of anything other than themselves? And the answer is never, basically. I can't think of any time, basically. But for the betterment of Scottish football, it would be better if we had more teams in European competition at the higher echelons of European competition. So I don't know that they'll take any of that into account or not. And it's not a devastation either way. It's just a preference for us. Obviously, there's more financial incentive to be in the Europa League, and we want to get back to punching at the weight that we've been successful at punching at, if you take away last season, over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. So we'll see what that looks like. But yeah, it's a bit of one of those dearie me, what have we ended up like as that season just wrapped up there? And I'd said before, you know what, that it was going to be the greatest comeback in Scottish footballing history if we actually won that championship, and I genuinely believe it would have been, and it just wasn't to be, and we deserved everything that we got, unfortunately. So in terms of the game segment, I'll be very, very quick with these. You know, dead rubber games, or not even dead rubber, just meaningless games are just exactly that. They're kind of meaningless, so I don't need to give you a real in-depth synopsis of that, but there's topical things that happened in each of the games. Of course, the first one was the midweek game, the midweek defeat at home to Hibs 2-1, and the big news surrounding that game in particular, and then the fallout after, for the few days after the game, was the big news that something had happened with Tav, and that, you know, we ended up in a situation where, I've said over the last few weeks, the guy never gave us one bit of trouble ever in the time that he was with us. Certainly nothing that came to light, and nothing that came into public view. And so when it came to pass that he's refusing to play, he's left the stadium, we don't know if he's coming back. I mean, this is the kind of real-time information we were getting in the, what would that be, hour or two before the game. I was saying to people, I just can't see it. Like, I can't see, like, all the dunderheads, all the idiots, all the chancers and reprobates that he had to deal with from a management perspective, sometimes from a leadership perspective, although most were good. And then he has an episode at the end that's the straw that broke the camel's back, basically, that he reacts to in such an emotional way. It was just very, very out of character. And that was really what my thought process was. And as it all came to light that this is actually genuinely what happened, this is something that could and should have been organised in advance, to say, right, there are two scenarios here, maybe even three, but the two main scenarios would be, if we are still in the league championship race, this is what it's going to look like. This is what we're going to do on the Hibs game, because the schedule was out a week or two in advance of the split actually occurring in the first place. This is known now to be his final home game. If we're still in the championship race, this is what we'll do. And assuming he's, I guess a byproduct of that would be as if he's playing, or if he's injured, or if he's out of contention, or whatever that looks like. The second scenario would be, if we are out of the championship race, this is what it's going to look like. And then I think the in principle part, and I guess the third one that I was kind of talking about there was, maybe if you're like at that point where you're like, well, it's mathematically possible, you never know. That garbage that we've done every now and again. So, that should have been organised in advance. Now, I know and appreciate that the in advance part would be like a week in advance. Actually, maybe not even a week, after we suffered the defeat to Hearts. I mean, that's when you say, right, okay, we've got 4 days to figure this out, put plan A or B or C, whatever it is, into place, and then this is exactly what we're going to do. Tav, this is what we're going to do. Danny, this is where it's at, and then figure it out from there. Like, that seems simple to me. Why you wouldn't do that? Because what's basically happened is a monumental miscommunication that ended up spilling into public view, and we've tried our best not to do that. Certainly Tav has never really been involved in that in his 11 years with us, and you're in a situation now where you've got a he said situation between the manager and the captain, or I should say the former captain, now that the season is over. And it's just expectations. It seems to me that expectations were inferred between both parties being Danny Rowe and James Tavernier. And Danny Rowe, I should say, before anybody corrects me. But I thought I was going to be walking out on the pitch. My son missed a camp in Holland because he wanted to be there. My family were going to be there, and I was told I wasn't starting. Danny Rowe was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I told you exactly what was happening, and then all of a sudden we have that bust up that leads to that. And the two guys could be right about exactly what happened, but that's where the club really and truly could and should have intervened. I know Andrew Kavanagh, I'll get to this in the communication section, but Andrew Kavanagh said, we didn't get involved in the football side. We had set things up. We did a whole bunch of things, as on the front and back of the match day programme and the presentation by John Gregg and such like that. But it's a situation where it's just the basics of communication, folks, isn't it? Where Tav assumed the thing was going to happen. Danny never once said that this was going to happen, if you believe him, and the truth will be somewhere in the middle, But what it really could and should have been was, right, explain this to me from Kavanagh or Marathi or the communications, Greg Miller, or whomever it would have been, to say exactly what do you think is happening. Okay, exactly what do you think is happening? Okay, there's a gap here. There's something that we need to organise. But when you leave the footballer and the football manager to figure this out, you get what you get, don't you? And it's such a shame. It's a bad It's a bad ending for Tav. It's really inconsequential. Truly, it doesn't matter. I know that it was emotional, and I know how I would feel if it was with Leo and I had promised my family a certain experience and situation. But what I've come to realise, certainly through my dealings with the club, and the leadership side and the ongoing, administration of the club, is that the club is a very, very emotional beast, and the club is very, very much, it goes with the winds of change. And if we're on the crest of a wave, sometimes the club is difficult to deal with because they are so wrapped up in making sure that the success is ongoing and sustained. Sometimes when we're in the depths of despair, the club is in turmoil, and people kind of seem to forget themselves and forget about protocol and forget about process and forget about commitments that were made and things like that. So you're dealing with this emotional amalgam of people, and that's when you need the cool head. That's when you need someone to say, just to be super clear here, this is actually what's happening and this is what's not happening. Is that cool? No, it's not cool. Okay, let's have a conversation about it. So I think the two of them would admit, in the benefit of hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, that they could have handled it better, and it doesn't taint his legacy with us. It's a hell of a shame that he goes out the way that he goes out, because obviously we were hoping he would have the league trophy there, but over time we kind of forget about those what we would think is inconsequential. Again, not underplaying the circumstance or the gravity of the impact on him and his family, but hopefully over time he'll be okay about it as well. Because when things spill out into the public, nobody wins. Really and truly, nobody wins. So in terms of the game was basically typical of our season, wasn't it? Actually, we played quite well in the first half, but some great chances made, some great chances not taken, and losing some goals that are just absolute dung based on our defending, our lazy defending, which is a theme towards the end of the season. We equalise with a brilliant free kick from Telo Asgard, which was great, and then we lose it at the end to some lazy defending. So that's what happens, and then you get booed off again. In terms of the positives for the game, it got us one game closer to the end of the season, didn't it? It gave us that opportunity to say, please finish this season here. And Asgard's free kick was good. And something that gives us a wee bit of hope, assuming that Asgard's going to be there next season, that we do have someone there that can take over the set pieces from James Tavernier, because obviously that's going to be a big miss, and we're going to miss a lot of that creativity and that impact that he had, especially from an attacking perspective. In terms of the negative, the result, of course, I was going to say the overall performance, but I don't really mean that, because I thought we did play well. We just aren't converting our chances, and I think that's really a confidence or a mentality thing within the team. I know Danny Rowe, he gets upset when we talk about mentality, but I think when your heart's not in it, when you're just kind of like, just let's get this finished, man, it gets to be a situation of just playing out a meaningless game. And here's the thing, this is from my vintage of Rangers fan. Like, I grew up through the Souness era. I grew up through 9 in a row, and very rarely, if ever, was there such a thing as a meaningless game. Even towards the end of the league season, if we weren't in contention to win the league, or we knew with a couple of games to go that the league was gone, there was typically the Scottish Cup final to look forward to. So there was never a meaningless game. So we're in this situation now where we've had pretty much a generation of meaningless games towards the end of the season. And it's a very bad habit to get into, folks. A very, very bad habit to get into, and a very difficult one to get out of as well. You can see that, like 20 odd, maybe 30,000 people there. That's a lot of people for any other club, apart from the club from the East End. But from our perspective towards the end of the season, that's not a lot of people, and that's a lot of lost revenue for local businesses, for the club in and of itself. And it's just not good enough, Possession, 72% possession. We had 72% possession, 16 shots on goal with 7 on target, and we scored 1. I don't even know what that percentage is. Is that 15%? Maybe a bit less than 15%, 12, something like that. Versus Hibs had 7 shots on goal with 4 on target and scored 2 of them, 50%. That's what we need. We need people in there that are going to give us 30 to 50% of conversion each and every single game, and then we'll be in much better shape for next season. In terms of the ref watch, I don't even remember the ref, to be honest, so he'll get a 7 out of 10, and we'll just move on from there. Okay. In terms of the final game of the season, that was a 5-2 win at Falkirk, and we lost So here's the thing. We've lost 2 goals, at least 2 goals, in each of the last 7 games of the season. Each of the last 7 games of the season, we lost 2 goals in each of them, and we didn't have a clean sheet since the 15th of March. I mean, that's over 2 months. We didn't have a clean sheet for. I mean, that just tells a story. I mean, that's when the stats can really, truly paint the picture, tell the story, isn't it? Where you get in that situation where you're saying, well, no wonder you didn't win anything. You couldn't keep a clean sheet. It was like the barn door was wide open there. So I think that's where I would be starting from a rebuilding perspective. If you have that opportunity to kind of do it in some sort of logical, chronological order, to say you need to start from possibly from the goalkeeper and then sort the defence and then figure out the midfield and then see what we're going to do in attack. But in terms of the game, it was entertaining overall, like it was the last time we were at Falkirk a few weeks back there. But we had some awful defending. We did have a great hat-trick, a really good hat-trick actually from Youssef Chermiti, which was great. Really good goal from Gassama and a penalty from, kind of thought it was a kind of soft penalty, but a penalty from Taylor Asgard, so he finished the season with a couple of goals, which is kind of cool. And then one of the goals that we gave away, obviously the 2 goals we gave away, the first one, Jack Butland, I just talked about him there. He's been Jack Butland this season more often than he's been Super Jack Butland. And he's not good, he's not great with the ball at his feet, and you just never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get a decent pass, many times you don't. If we're genuinely playing the type of style of football that's going to incorporate him as part of the build-up to attacking formations and attacking plays, he either has to get markedly better at that, or we need to sign someone who can still save the shots and stop the crosses when they come in and actually have a wee bit of better success with his feet, because it's a back pass and he takes his eye off the ball. He's thinking about what he's doing next. The ball hits him and it goes in the net. It's embarrassing. Straight after we'd scored as well, the second goal, and you're thinking, right, well, give us something to shout about. Not that, Jack. Not that, Jack. And then the second goal is a phantom penalty. I talked at the beginning about we've seen the best and worst of Scottish football this last week. Actually, I don't even know what the best part was. We've seen the worst of Scottish football this last week. And one of the key things was the phantom penalty. The ball comes over. All I see is the ball coming over, hitting the Falkirk player's arm, and then a penalty being given against us. They showed tons of basically the same angle, actually, because there wasn't that many other angles to be able to see. And how the referee can go to the monitor and say that's absolutely a penalty to Falkirk and give that is absolutely, it's genuine fantasy, isn't it? It's just utterly unbelievable. So we'll get to him in a second. In terms of the positives, the win, Chermiti's hat-trick, the season's done. Back to Chermiti, we still don't have the warm and fuzzies. I don't sense the warm and fuzzies that we have about Youssef Chermiti. And when you think about that, I think that was, 15 league goals that he scored this season, after a really torturous start for him. I think he's an impact player. I think he grafts a lot. He does a lot of work. He does a lot of really good link-up play, and his finishing is getting better. I know it's just Falkirk. I know it's a meaningless game at the end of the season, but those were 3 great finishes that he had for all 3 goals, especially the second one. Second one was an absolute peach, to chest the ball down and volley it in like that. Any other time, that's people are lauding or applauding that for days and days and days afterwards. So I really hope that we hold on to him, because he's turning 22 like this week sometime, something like that. So still a very young guy and still got a lot to learn and contribute. And he puts himself about a wee bit there. I don't know that we should be so quick to write him off. The price tag, of course, was a big thing in the early part of the season. We don't talk about the price tag anymore now that he's contributing with goals and actually doing that a wee bit more regularly. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm a fan and I do like it. I do get excited when I see him in the team. And of course, one of the other positives was some first team action for some of the youngsters as well, coming off of the under-19s victory at the end of last week, I guess it was last season as well, and that they get some first team action as well, which is great to see. In terms of the negatives, Jack Butland and that goal, just you can't do that, man. You just can't do that. Possession, here's an interesting thing. We had 45% of the possession, so we just decided to give up the possession. And at one point, it was a lot less than that. I remember Tom Miller saying that on the commentary. We had 12 shots with 7 on target, scored 5 of them. That's a really good return, isn't it? 5 out of 7. That's, I don't know, what's that, 60 odd, 70 maybe, 70%, something like that. Falkirk had 8 shots on goal with 3 on target. scored 2 of them. So this is better than ours, maybe, or maybe around about that. So yeah, on the ref watch, that Duncan Nicholson is the fella's name. It's just a ridiculous decision to send him to the screen in the first place, but I understand why they did it. And then for him, it's supposed to be clear and obvious, folks. It's supposed to be clear and obvious, and it wasn't. It just plainly wasn't. There's no way that he could sit and say with certainty that hit his hand, and it's time to give the penalty. You know, especially when it hit their guy first on the arm. So get a grip. So he's going to get a 3 out of 10. In terms of next games that are meaningful for us, if you care about international football, is of course the World Cup. That's coming up here, so that's going to be quite exciting. We get a wee breather from actual football. I guess next week I'll probably talk about the Scottish Cup final because of the implications that I mentioned a wee bit earlier in the pod there, and then we'll see what that looks like as well. 4 shout-outs, I have 2. The first one is for the wonderful treasurer of the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary. Lorelei Liddell is celebrating a birthday today. We did ask if it was a major milestone birthday on the weekend. We had a couple of drinks on Saturday afternoon, and she said it wasn't, but it's still worthy of an acknowledgement and a very, very happy birthday message from me and the entire membership of the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary. Thank you very, very much for stepping in to be our treasurer, Lorelei, and thank you for all the work that you do. It was great to see you on the weekend there, and I don't know if we're going to organise a season ender. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. We'll see what that looks like, and if not, we'll see at the beginning of next season. Second shout out is for Willie Smith from Niagara True Blues Rangers Supporters Club. His nephew Jamie Smith was actually picked again to play for Rangers in a charity match that was held at Ibrox this morning, and that's the second year in a row for Jamie playing in that. And I know that Willie is a proud uncle, and he felt that it was worthy of acknowledgement, and I'm more than happy to do that. We just literally just got off of a planning call with the entertainment that we have organised for Nashville 2026, and Stuart Hay was there, Stuart Hay from The Journey Back, that is, and Stuart was also playing in that match and said that he was absolutely done in. He says, I'm walking like the Tin Man. He was not in good shape at all, having played in that, because it was so early. I think they had to be there at like 8 a.m. or something like that, and I don't know that 8 a.m. is a time that Stuart's actually functioning properly. We'll find out a wee bit about that more in Nashville over the next wee while. Speaking of Nashville 2026, or Destination NARSA, or if you feel like going a bit retro and saying the NARSA convention, then we are 23 days away, just over 3 weeks away. That is, of course, June the 11th to the 14th, and we are literally in the final throes of the planning and organising. As I say, we just had a conversation with all of the entertainment to say, here's the itinerary, here's what we're going to be doing when, what do you need for that, what type and style of setup do you need, what audio-visual stuff and support do you need, and things like that. So we're really, really getting to the nitty-gritty. This is when it feels really, really real, which is great. And we're now in a situation where I think I've been promising this for, what would you say, about 3 months or something like that, where we've got the itinerary of events, and I said we're going to get it out there and we're going to tell you and show you exactly what it looks like, and we are literally absolutely in a position to do that. If you are watching this on YouTube, you will now see this on the screen. And this is what our schedule looks like. So we have on Thursday the welcome night, as we typically do, and what we have there is that the table is set up into 2 areas. The bottom table is all about the games that are going on, apart from the Scotland game. That's actually ingrained into the main table up top, and the top part is the actual itinerary of events. So we have the welcome night on the Thursday, which is from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m, and we're going to have a VIP Q&A. We're going to have Rebecca Auchterlonie singing. We're going to have Danny Magic doing his magic stuff that I discussed with you last week, and we're going to have DJ Angry Bear doing everything that he does in terms of the support with the background music and such. And what we do have on the Thursday is we have the first 2 games is Mexico versus South Africa. That kicks off at 2 p.m. If you're in and around, I think we'll be upstairs at the bar probably watching that. And then the game at night, 9 p.m, is South Korea versus Czechia. And yeah, not 100% sure I'm going to be overly enthused to watch that game, but that's what's on. And we're going to basically have a theme of games being on in the background as we're doing our events, if that's actually the way that the timing works out. Friday morning, we have the Davy Cooper Memorial Top Golf. tournament. That's from 9 to 12, and we were just confirming with the VIPs today who is going to be there. If you haven't booked your tickets yet, please do so that we can get an opportunity to know and understand. It's definitely going ahead at the Top Golf. You don't need to be of any vintage of golfer to go and enjoy. It's just basically like a driving range, and you get some fun screens and some things that you can hit and some bonuses and things like that. We're going to have in the afternoon the story of Rangers, and that's obviously by David Mason, and we're going to be putting some entertainment into that as well, based on what we just talked about there. And then in the evening we have the Walter Smith Memorial Grand Buffet. Usually we call it the Grand Banquet, but it's a Grand Buffet this year because we're doing a buffet style, and we'll have some VIP, some entertainment that is going to regale you through the night. Just a reminder that the Friday night is a Western themed night. If you have cowboy boots, if you have a checked or a plaid shirt, depending on what you describe it as, if you have a cowboy hat, if anything like that, please go ahead. I don't have anything like that, so I'm going to have to try and see whether I actually want to do that or not, but if I can, I will. And we'll see how it goes from there. On Saturday, there's going to be a repeat of the Story of Rangers from 1 to 2 p.m. They're going to have the Tam Plunkett Blue Night on the Saturday, and the main showpiece of that Saturday is going to be the Scotland World Cup opener for us against Haiti, and that's going to be on the rooftop bar there. We're going to get an opportunity to go and celebrate Scotland, if that's your thing. On Sunday, we have the Leaving Do, and that's still, you'll see that's still listed there and registered as TBD. We haven't fully locked in. We have access to the hotel if we want. It would be nice to be able to go somewhere else and just give you a wee bit of entertainment and a wee bit of an opportunity to go and see and do something else, so we don't get a bit of cabin fever having been in the same area. That's a work in progress now. The season's done. We have 23 days to figure out exactly where we want to go, what we want to do for that. The games on the Sunday is Holland versus Japan at 3 p.m. and Ivory Coast versus Ecuador at 6 p.m. So we would typically do it from like 12 to 3-ish, something like that. So we'll see what that looks like and figure that out as well. So that's the itinerary. We will be posting it on our socials. If I can attach this to the YouTube, I will, and give you that opportunity to be able to download the file from YouTube. I think I can do it, but I'm not 100% sure. We had a wee bit of a debate of that. If you see it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. Just a quick reminder of our ex-player VIPs. We have David Robertson, we have Derek Ferguson, we have Mark Walters, and we have Scott Nisbet coming along, and we have Fraser Thornton and Jim Gillespie and Greg Marshall from Rangers coming along as well. So it's getting very, very, very close here, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Having a wee bit. We used to have it essentially the week after the football season ended, which would be the week after this weekend coming, early June, but we couldn't because of availability in the hotel. But it does give us a wee bit of breathing space to convalesce after that junk box of a season and give us a chance to say, right, okay, the party is literally still going ahead anyway, so let's get that done. Just another reminder for NARSA members that we are having the AGM the weekend before, the Saturday before that. In terms of communication for this week, there was a Gers guide indeed, and some exciting news on the women's team front. Firstly, we had an absolutely brilliant game yesterday where we thumped Celtic 4-0. Forgive me for saying the C word. I try and avoid that on this podcast. And during the week, they had won 3-0 at Partick Thistle. So what that looks like now is that we're still second, but remember we were 4 points and 3 goals behind this time last week on the pod. Well, we're now 2 points behind and we're 1 goal ahead. In fact, actually, after that resounding victory that we had there. So what that means for this weekend, this final game of the season, is that we are away to Glasgow City. It's now on BBC Scotland. It's going to be shown live on TV if you're interested in watching that, and that's a 1:10 kick-off, and Hearts play away to Hibs. Now, what we need is Hibs as the defending champions to beat Hearts and us to beat Glasgow City in order for the women's team to be champions. I think as long as I've been covering the women's team on these podcasts, I think it's went to the last game almost every year, hasn't it? And we've missed out. So who knows whether that's going to actually turn out to be the case or not. But to even just get to the last game is achievement in and of itself, based on some of the dodgy results that we had, particularly after their version of the split. Can the Hearts women's team hearts it like Hartsted on the men's side. Who knows whether that's going to be the case or not. But yeah, we'll see. So back to the Gers guide. There is going to be highlights, of course, on Rangers TV for the 4-0 victory yesterday. And then there's also an interview with Laura Berry, who scored in the game yesterday too. On Tuesday, it didn't actually mention that there was a loan review, and maybe there's not, but I'm just going to say there's possibly a loan review for tomorrow, and there's an interview with first team debutant Aidan McCallion, who got some time on the pitch on Saturday. There on Wednesday, there's an interview with Malky Thompson talking about the under-19s CAS Elite League Championship run, and then nothing much on Thursday, Friday. Saturday, there's the Hong Kong Soccer Sevens, and I think there's an under-17 tournament called the Festival d'Amour. I'm not a French guy, so forgive me if I butchered that. And then a Sunday, of course, is the big game, and that's the final league game of the women's season, and that's Rangers away at Glasgow City. Not an easy game whatsoever, but you never know how things are going to work out. But all the very, very, very best to Leanne Crichton and the team there, and hopefully it would be great for some sort of success to come to the club. You know, obviously the under-17s, under-19s have done very well on the men's side. It would be great if the women topped that off with a championship victory as well. So we'll see what that looks like. The last thing on the communications front was that yesterday you probably seen the interviews or read the interviews with Chairman Andrew Kavanagh, and it was his essentially end of season synopsis. And essentially, he didn't pull any punches. He didn't avoid any difficult questions or anything like that. You know, he basically said we didn't succeed, and that's not good enough. To succeed at Rangers, you have to win titles, and we didn't win titles. So that's a resounding failure. I already said and told you my thoughts on the ownership's first season in charge, it being a complete disaster and taking us backwards. And with all the loan players and with some of the players that are on their way out, Tav being an example, they have a hell of a lot of surgery to do to this squad to give us hope and optimism that we're going to be in a situation where we can actually do some meaningful work and challenge properly for the title from the get-go, rather than just chasing the whole time and doing all this mathematical gymnastics that we have to do to see, well, you never know, we still have to play them another 3 times and all that garbage as well. But the key news out of that was that Danny Röhl is I don't know why I'm struggling with Danny's name today, maybe because I'm just upset with him overall, but he's going to be our coach for next season. So that's that, and they're committing to revamping the squad and giving him a proper pre-season as well, which he didn't have an opportunity to do. I don't think the recruitment that we had last year, you know, it didn't bear fruit in the beginning, but if you go back to the Yusuf Chamiti, you know, dialogue that I had a wee bit earlier there, I think there was some really good quality in there, you know, so it wasn't all bad from the previous regime of the folks on the sporting side. And in January, they were okay, no big disasters there. So we need that continued backing. And with the loan players returning to clubs and such like that, we're going to have to just see what that looks like. I have to say, I do like the timing of this. You know, I'm just going to, after the last game of the season, I'm going to do some interviews and then just leave us alone to get on with our job, which he said, you know, the planning for next season had already started in December, January. So you have to imagine they have a number of targets, transfer targets that they could ideally lock up before the World Cup, you know, to see how that looks and figure out what sort of shape, literal and figurative shape the squad is going to look like. You know, you mentioned we have a good squad but not a good team, and I kind of, yeah, okay, right, I can see that. You know, there's not a lot of players that when they come on, you're doing a big eye roll. You know, when you get like Kieran Dowell coming on, and you're like, oh my God, what's that sort of thing? So I guess we'll see. But yeah, get that done and dusted, and then go into hibernation and put your literal money where your mouth is and give us something to be a wee bit more excited about as we go on. He speaks well, and he told his truth. So I think that's all we can really ask for from the chairman. But the best part of what you can actually do to demonstrate that you're hurting as much as you say you are is to deliver, to learn the lessons that you need to learn from this season and then provide us with success next year, Andrew. So please do that, and we will be backing you to the absolute hilt, and you will be a legend at the club. If you don't or you can't, then you will have a very difficult time, and you might have to try and figure out something else or bring in someone else who can. So we'll see what that looks like. That's just the nature of the business that you are in, my friend. So yeah, so that's that. Just another reminder, please do follow us online on the various socials platforms at NARSA Comms. That's NARSA COMMS, and of course like and subscribe on our YouTube channel as well. That will do it as a wrap for season 25-26. We'll get excited about the World Cup, we'll get excited about Destination NARSA, we'll get excited about next season, and we will keep going as things develop over the next wee while. What you might be able to expect over the next wee while is some of the entertainment and or maybe the VIPs coming on to the pod each week just to kind of help us with a wee bit of marketing, a wee bit of excitement, and a wee bit of something different other than just my dulcet tones. So hopefully that will work out, and that will be something to look forward to over the next few weeks. So until next week, thank you very much as always for taking the time to tune in. Please do share it with someone that you think might enjoy it. That's a wrap, a general mess overall. Let's not repeat that season again, and we will see what next week and the following weeks bring for us and our wonderful club. Until next week, please do take care of yourself and all the very best. Okay, follow.